Hello and welcome to Unwind Sessions, where right after my shift I give the highlights of my workday and answer any questions that might have been asked at a previous session. My name is Juan. I am an English Spanish medical video remote consecutive interpreter with over 4 years of experience. Today is Monday, May 17th, 2021. Today I took a total of 34 sessions. It was mostly video sessions today. I think I took about 3 or 4 audio sessions, which were a nice break because the whole day was filled just with video sessions. So it was a pretty exhausting day. There was nothing really eventful, although our calls were pretty much straightforward. However, there was one new term that I learned today, and that new term is orchiopexy, which the Spanish translation is orchiopexia. And the definition from winchesterhospital.org says that orchiopexy is a surgery to lower the testicles into the scrotum. Testicles should move down from the belly into the scrotum before birth. Some boys are born with one or both testicles still inside the belly or the groin. Now, I did not know what orchiopexy meant, so I went ahead and I asked the provider if she could spell it for me. And she was nice enough to actually go ahead and spell it out for me. And once she gave me the spelling, I found the correct interpretation, the correct translation, and I was able to interpret it back to the patient. So it was pretty easy, but it was a completely new word for me. So that's something that I learned today. And something else that happened today is that for some reason, and I know that everybody has this because I've heard stories about this, that there are just some words, some basic words that we all struggle with. And one of those words for me, I've already mentioned some words in previous sessions that I really struggle with, but one word that I really struggle with all the time for some reason, I just go blank whenever a provider mentions this, is impairment, like a hearing impairment or a visual impairment. And for some reason, my mind just goes completely blank and I cannot think of the translation for this. And I don't know why this happens. You'd think I would have already have that word down, but I don't. And for impairment today, what I used was disability, which kind of um, is kind of the meaning, but not really. So for impairment, the correct word would be the correct translation, actually, the correct Spanish translation would actually be impedimento. And I don't know why. For some reason, that just doesn't get stuck in my head. But I am going to make an effort to actually remember this now that it came up because I hate having trouble with just simple words like this. For example, another word that I used to struggle with right when I started interpreting was ratio, which a Spanish translation for ratio is proporción. And I don't know why I struggle, like just the same as I struggle with impairment, I used to struggle with proporción as well, with ratio. And what did I do to help me with this? Well, I actually wrote it out. I had a little I took a notebook and I just wrote it out like I had it ratio proporción and I just wrote ratio proporción like probably like 50 times until I actually remembered it. Now, I have not done this for impairment, but believe me, I am about to do this as soon as I stop recording this video because I don't want to get caught up on the word anymore. Because it's had happened more than a few times, and it really makes me feel bad when I can't think of the Spanish equivalent to that word, and worse, that impairment is just so close to impedimento that that just makes me feel horrible, honestly. But I mean, like I always say, I mean, we're always learning and we always have to do our best and we always have to improve. And to be an interpreter, you're going to have to put the work in, and there are a lot of things that are going to become second nature to you, and you are going to get them right away. But there are going to be some words that you are going to struggle with, and you are really going to have to put in the work to be able to remember it. And some of those words are really going to be some very basic words, and I don't know why that happens, but it does. Um, I am really curious to know what words do you have trouble with, or have you had trouble with? Please share those in the comments. I am curious to know because I have a few of them, and I mean, if I try to think about them, I will not remember them. But I do have a little cheat sheet here. Um, and that I've had this little cheat sheet ever since I started working as an interpreter. I'm going to see if it can focus. There we go. And though that's my little cheat sheet. And honestly, right now, MRSA, I already know that one. VRE, I know no, VRE, I don't remember VRE. Staff, of course, I remember staff. RSV, that one I remember already. And orthotics, that is one word that always escapes me as well, but I have it on my cheat sheet. So every time that word comes up, I always have to look at this cheat sheet, and I have to update this cheat sheet because um, I already know some words from here. For example, MRSA, I can't remember. I can remember that when I'm interpreting, if ever comes up, and also staff and RSV. But VRE is a word that I would have to keep on there, and jejunum, jejuno, jejunum, jejuno. That is a word that I cannot remember either. So I have it on my cheat sheet. So um, I should probably write impairment in there as well, and I am going to do that as soon as I get off of this video. But I am also going to practice it because I don't want to get caught up on it. And it is always a good idea to keep a cheat sheet of those words that you just can't remember. I think I mentioned it in a previous video, and it is always a good idea to always have that little piece of paper. It can be just a sticky note or just something that you have accessible real quick. And if you're an over the phone interpreter or a video remote interpreter like I am, well, one advantage that we have is that we can actually just post that like right in front of our computer, and that way if it ever comes up, you know that you don't have to look it up in a translator or anything, and it will always be just right there so that you can actually go ahead and use it. So that's just a nice little trick. And please go ahead and post the words that you struggle with. It's always nice to uh, hear and listen what other interpreters are also struggling with, so you know that you're not the only one. So that was pretty much it, the highlights of my day. So today I am going to move on into something that I am really interested in, and that is neural network translation or deep learning, which is also called. But I'm going to talk today about neural network interpreting. If you're not familiar with neural network or deep learning, well, this is an artificial intelligence or AI of machine learning. And how this actually works, I am going to explain it with an example. For example, with a word. The word can has the meaning that is to be able to, but the word can is also a cylindrical metal container, right? So how do you do, like, we automatically differentiate one word from the other because of context, right? And we are able to do this. And if you put like just one word, then that's a little hard for us, right, to actually know. If they tell you what does can mean, well, you're gonna give two meanings, right? Because there's no context to actually tell you if it's to be able to, or if it's a cylindrical medical, or if it's a cylindrical metal container, right? So How do they do this through neural network? How does a neural network actually accomplish the right translation or guess or actually know the right meaning to a word, right? So the way this works is that, for example, we take the word can, right? And we put the word can, but we have to feed the machine an input. For example, the sentence, can you do this for me? And now that is the input, but you also have to give the machine the correct answer. So, for example, the translation for can you do this for me would be puedes hacer esto por mí. Now, how does the machine know that is because can, as in to be able to, the Spanish translation is poder. And can, a cylindrical metal container, is lata. So then you have to feed in, can you do this for me? And then you have to give it the correct answer. Puedes hacer esto por mí. And now the machine is going to actually learn and is going to give value to the correct answer, right? For example, you're going to have puedes hacer esto por mí as an answer, and that is going to have a certain value. And then lata hacer esto por mí is going to have like a lower value, right? And then the what is going to happen is that you are going to give the input. Can you do this for me? So then the machine is going to actually go ahead and try the first definition, and then if it matches the end result, then that is going to have a higher value over the other possibilities and the other definitions, right? And every time is going to be comparing the context of what you actually put into it to what the actual answer should be. So that is how neural networking works. And this is not limited just to translation. There's neural networking that is being used for like a lot of things, so that the machine can actually learn how to figure out how to get the correct answers on its own. Like what you do is you feed it the input, and then you feed the correct answer, and then you also feed all of the possibilities, and the machine just automatically has to be testing it, and then it just tests and tests and tests, and tests could take like hours, weeks, depending on the context and of the things that it has to figure out. Like it could take a very long time to actually develop this neural network. So I find this very interesting, number one, because I'm an interpreter, and number two, because I really love technology, and I am really, um, this is a topic that really, um, it, I just really like it. I really like learning and reading about all of this, not just in a translation context, but also in a general context. The idea that I have right now is very basic, and the understanding of the concept is very basic because I am barely just getting into it. But this is something that I honestly think is the future. And why do I say this? Because I personally use neural network translation whenever I work on lengthy translation projects, and it actually works very well. The first time that I ever used it, I was actually surprised at how well it worked, and I just never stopped using it after that. So whenever I get a project, the first thing that I do is I feed it into the neural network um, program, and then, or interface I should say, and then after that I just compare like the English version to the Spanish version. Well, before that, I make sure that the Spanish version actually makes sense, like everything. I go like paragraph by paragraph, and then I read it, and I make sure that it actually makes sense. Then I go ahead and then I compare the English version to the Spanish version to make sure that I actually have a correct translation, right? And how I used to do it before is like I would just um, look at the English thing and then I would just be typing away everything. But that honestly takes too much time. It takes too long for me. So, of course, when I actually try this and then I am just comparing versions, well, that is much faster, right? Because I don't have to type everything. Everything has already been typed out for me. Like, the only thing that you have to do is actually, like, take paragraph by paragraph, unless you actually have the premium version and you're actually paying for the interface, then you can actually translate everything and then you can edit it there and everything. But this is really a game changer for me. And like I said, I was very surprised at the accuracy that it has. Of course, it's not perfect, and there are some funky translations that you actually have to work and fix, and there are some sentence structuring that is actually like really bad. But and then you just have to mess around with it to like you have to put your input so that it is correct. But I mean, this is something that is already being used today. So right now we have voice recognition, and guess how voice recognition was actually achieved? It was achieved through neural networking. So I mean, this is something that has already been tried and true, and is being used right now for translation right now, like I said. And I know that many of you already knew this, but probably did not know the logic behind that. So that's how it works, and that's why I think that, I mean, from translation, machine translation to machine interpretation is not that far off. Like we probably have maybe 10 years, maybe less, give or take. But I really do think that this is a reality and that this is actually going to be something that is going to happen in the future. And I know that a lot of um, I know that a lot of translators like myself, like whenever there were, well, I'm I'm a translator, but I do this whenever they give me assignments. But I am really an interpreter. But whenever I get a translation assignment, like I said, I use those systems. And I actually, the other day, I was reading a post in a group in Facebook that talked about the tools that translators use. And I saw a lot of comments from a lot of translators that are actually using neural networking in their translations already. So, of course, sometimes the answers are funky, but the more you use it, the more you feed into it, and the more the neural network is learning, and it's actually going to get better. So every time that you actually use it, it's actually getting better. And I don't think that neural network consecutive interpreting is actually impossible. And as a matter of fact, there are some products out there that actually claim that machine consecutive interpreting is real. I don't know, however, if they use a neural network, or um, how they're actually doing their interpretation. But I went ahead and I look into the comments. That's the first thing that I do of users that have actually used those products, and the response that I see in all of these products is that they work very well for like basic conversations, like for example asking someone for an address or just very basic simple stuff. But when the conversation turns more complex, then the comments I've seen is that this is completely useless. So what is my take on this? That neural network interpreting, do I think it's impossible? No. Do I think it's really hard? Yes, because I've actually been digging into, and I've actually been doing some research into what neural networking entails. And well, of course, it's very, very hard. But once the machine has all the input and all the output that it needs, then this is this is going to be a reality. And I know that there are some skeptics out there that actually say that no, there's no way that this could actually happen because of all of the different accents, all of the different regionalisms, and all of that stuff. But I am a firm believer that I think that once a machine has been fed all of the input that it requires, or most of the input that it requires, I think that this is going to be much better than a human interpreter. Why do I think this is going to be much better than a human interpreter? Well, because number one, a machine is not going to forget a word. Like for example, like impairment. Like I forget that word. I don't think a machine is actually going to forget that, right? Because it's going to be hardwired into the system, right? And every time is going to give you the correct definition. Of course, it's going to take many, many years and lots of user input to actually go ahead and achieve this. But I mean, the other day I was reading an article that said that human aided machine interpretation is actually the next step for the next big step for the field. And I do believe that. I do believe that because I mean I am a user of human aided machine translation, right? Like I mentioned, that's how I do all the translation assignments. So I mean, from taking, of course, that from machine aided translation to machine aided interpretation is a huge step, right? Because first of all, you got voice recognition, and then the actual interpretation or translation. So that is going to be very, very, very big, and it is going to be very hard to actually achieve that. But I honestly think that this is something that on the next few years is going to happen. And even if it does happen, I honestly would prepare for it. If you plan on being an interpreter or continue to being an interpreter, I would suggest for you to actually look into um, neural network translation and neural network interpreting. That way you have an idea how this works, and if it ever happens that we actually get substituted by machines, which the first step is going to be human aided machine interpretation, where the machines are actually going to have a human that is going to be monitoring their interpretations and their translations, like translation, which we actually already do. And that and I think that we as interpreters we actually have to embrace this technology because this technology is here to stay. Just look at Google Translate, just look at DeepL from Lingui. I mean, these are technologies that are not going away, and every time that we use them and every time that everybody uses them, they continue to grow stronger. So, as an interpreter, I would really encourage you to actually look into these technologies and understand how they work so that you can make a rational decision. Like, do I really think we still have 10 more years in this field? Do I really think we have 20 years? Or I don't know. I would really like to um, know what you guys think. What do you guys think? Do you think that neural networking interpreting is actually not that far away in the future? Or am I delusional? Is this never going to happen because of the complexity of languages? I would really love to hear your take on it. So, what do you guys think? Please leave your comments in the comment section. I really hope that we can start a discussion about this because this is something that is happening right now. So that is pretty much it for me today. Please leave your questions on the comments and I will answer some of them on the next session. Remember that I'll be here every Monday through Friday after work. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video and have not done so for more content. And don't forget to share. Happy interpreting. Goodbye.